Congressman, I would like your overall reaction to the hearing this week and Pam Bondi's performance, combativeness.
Have you apologized to President Trump? Have you apologized to President Trump, all of you who participated in those impeachment hearings against Donald Trump?
I don't think she did very well. She came with a book full of insults, one for each congressperson. She obviously had one for me.
Did you ask Merrick Garland that the last 4 years? Did you talk about Epstein?
I'm reclaiming my time. I'm glad you're asking about Merrick Garland.
You don't get to reclaim time
this is bigger than Watergate.
When I don't answer a question the way you want.
This goes over 4 administrations. You don't have to go back to Biden. Let's go back to Obama. Let's go back to George Bush. This cover-up spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it.
And that's
now,
where the
I want to know, at what point did the FBI and the DOJ decide that Lex Wessner was not a co-conspirator? Because our Epstein Files Transparency Act requires you, please put it back on the screen, please, to release the internal decision about whether to prosecute him or not, and it's not in the files, and it's not in the files for any of these other men.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
May she answer?
And he's a hypocrite because he voted against the ban that we were talking about on deep fake AI porn. Only 2 people voted against it, and you were one of them, hypocrite.
You know, I've been there when Merrick Garland is there. Obviously, politically, I don't agree with him, but he performed much better in terms of at least not looking bad. And unfortunately, we didn't get the answers we wanted about the Epstein Files Transparency Act from her.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here, and Pam Bondi went to war with the truth this week on Capitol Hill. Her performance was so evasive and combative that even members of her own party called her out. Bondi didn't show up to protect the victims. She showed up to stonewall, deflect, bully, and protect pedophiles. And nobody was buying it, especially Thomas Massie.
The DOJ sent Congress a letter explaining the reason for all these reactions. So you are not satisfied with that?
No, they're citing deliberative process privilege in order not to release some of the documents. The problem with that is the bill that Ro Khanna and I wrote says that they must release internal memos and notes and emails about their decisions on whether to prosecute or not prosecute, whether to investigate or not investigate. It's important they follow that because then we could find why they didn't prosecute Leslie Wexner. What was the decision tree there? And also why in 2008 they gave Jeffrey Epstein such a light sentence. And finally, I know the DOJ wants to say they're done with this document production. The problem is they've taken down documents before we were able to go over to the DOJ and look at the unredacted versions. They took down some of the most significant documents, 2 of them involving Virginia Giuffre's case and other things. The picture of Epstein in a room where it's got CIA written on the boxes, that's been taken down. We want to be able to look at all these files. They can't keep those documents down after they've already produced them.
On the week with Martha Raddatz, Massie finally got the chance to say out loud what a lot of people were thinking. He's done with the spin. He's done with the excuses. And he's sure as hell done with the idea that we're all supposed to just move on from the Epstein files. Because nobody is moving on until the victims can see their own FBI 302 forms. And until the powerful men they've named are actually brought to justice.
What we have here is the third exhibit that I have is emblematic of the FD 302 release. These are the documents that we need that you're holding on to and over-redacting because they have the names of the men who are implicated. How do we know? Because the survivors gave testimony to the FBI, and it's in there. And what happens when you go to the portal at the DOJ to look at what's behind this redaction? Another redaction. So we can't even see them. And then there's some of these files you've pulled down from the website that we will never see because we can't search the redactions.
She isn't acting like an attorney general. She's acting like a desperate conspirator who knows that if she prosecutes everyone with ties to Epstein, Trump's entire administration would collapse. She's acting like Trump's personal Ghislaine Maxwell. And once you see that, the whole picture becomes crystal clear. This wasn't a normal hearing, not even close. It was a full-blown circus, with members on both sides of the aisle pressing Bondi relentlessly over her handling of the Epstein files. One demanded that Bondi apologize directly to the survivors who were literally sitting in the room. Jamie Raskin tore into her over the document handling, calling it a betrayal of justice and a violation of the law. And instead of answering any of it, Bondi snapped back. She wouldn't even make eye contact with the survivors behind her, a moment that went viral for a reason. She talked down to members of Congress, questioned people's credentials, and pivoted to unrelated nonsense like bragging about the stock market. This is where Massey gets to the heart of it. He makes it clear this was never about political theater. Pam Bondi is legally required to follow the law he wrote with Ro Khanna, the Epstein Files Transparency Act. That law doesn't just call for document dumps and press releases. It requires due diligence, internal memos, notes, emails, decision-making records, why someone was prosecuted and why someone wasn't. Massey laid it out plainly. The DOJ produced these documents, handed the public a big white folder, and called it transparency. Once they did that, they lost the right to quietly pull the most important evidence back down, especially the documents tied directly to Virginia Giuffre's case. When Massey pressed Bondi on who redacted Leslie Wexner's name from the one document that actually mattered, the one labeled child sex trafficking with co-conspirator attached, she wouldn't answer. And we all know why. Because under the law, that responsibility doesn't fall on Todd Blanche or some anonymous staffer. It falls on her. As Massey put it, you can delegate tasks, but you cannot delegate responsibility. With Epstein's survivors sitting right behind her, it's no surprise Bondi couldn't make eye contact. She wasn't there to help them. She was there to protect Donald Trump and all of his enablers. You don't get to move on while survivors are still being ignored. And you don't move on when the Attorney General can't explain who decided to shield powerful people and why.
Did you know that the big wireless carriers like Verizon and AT&T made over $18 billion in profit last year? How? By overcharging you for unlimited data, most of which you probably aren't even using. But what if you could get paid to use your phone less and only pay for the data you do use? Well, with Noble Mobile, you can. For just $50 a month on their No Bull plan, you get unlimited data, and whatever data you don't use, you get cash back right in your pocket. People who switch to Noble can save an average of $500 to $1,000 a year. It's a no-brainer. And by switching to Noble, you're directly supporting TYT and our mission of bringing you honest, independent news. So give Noble a try and make the switch today. Scan the QR code on the screen now or visit go.tyt.com/plan. That's go.tyt.com/plan.
The moment Massey refused to shut up and kept pushing on the Epstein files, he got singled out and targeted. The pressure escalated so badly that a sitting member of Congress felt compelled to publicly post that he's not suicidal, that his brakes work, that he practices gun safety, and that there are no mysterious bodies of water on his property. That is not normal. That is a red flag. Trump's people know. They know their base would rather protect a pedophile because that pedophile allows them to be the worst versions of themselves. And because that pedophile is also a racist, they're willing to look past pedophilia entirely. That's how broken this has become. And Pam Bondi's behavior matters because it's a flashing red warning sign about where we are. When an attorney general abandons the rule of law to protect the powerful, history tells us what comes next. During Watergate, it wasn't just the president under scrutiny. The attorney general went to prison. Now Bondi wants us to believe that prosecuting everyone connected to Epstein would cause the system to collapse. Fine. That's the fork in the road we're standing at. Because when the rule of law fails, what fills that vacuum isn't justice. It's chaos. It's anger. It's vigilante thinking. And nobody wants to live in a country where accountability disappears and the loudest, most dangerous voices decide what's right. For all his flaws, Thomas Massey is showing something Republicans need to confront. This can't be fixed from the outside. If the Republican Party wants to remain legitimate, committed to constitutional government and equal justice under the law, this has to come from within. Not spin, not deflection, not circling the wagons. Accountability. Two real parties, both bound by law, both willing to police their own, because when that collapses, the country pays the price. That's why Thomas Massey refusing to shut up matters. And that's why nobody is moving on from this until the victims finally get justice. And that is an absolute fact. Sappers clear the way, airborne all the way.